Missing anything? YouTube chat. Okay. File in order. I should change the view so people can see. Okay. We're opening Ardour, going through our file system, YouTube TV, recorded audio, open, name this, taking in inputs, okay, open. We don't have that menu to crash us. Audio, add and close, verify that this is working reasonably well, seems like it. Seems a little lower though than normal. Audio test it. Testing, testing, testing. Okay, that's fine. Desktop audio should be enabled for the audio recording so that people can hear what it sounds like. And this text should be changed to anything video. Maybe I'll have more detail than that actually. Because I have lots of space. Squeaky chair. Alrighty, and then I need to find my script. This thing. It's not the exact script, but it's holding it somewhere. Game devlogs are stuck. Okay. Input management without motion inputs. Basic fighting game notation. Move list variable management. Oh no. Just imagine opening the file of like what a fighting game move list looks like, or something. How to handle motion inputs. Wait, do I not have a way to pull in inputs? You have an input system. Yeah. Alright, I could go over motion inputs as well, or numpad notation. Uh, so how do I want to start the video? What do I want to do? What do I want to introduce? One of the things that make fighting games unique is the very large variety of ways you can attack, with all these different special moves on a single character. And you have precise control of it. The next closest thing would be something like Devil May Cry or Hi-Fi Rush, where you have a bunch of button combinations you can do, but you don't have as much fine-tuned control. Yeah. How to handle motion inputs is what I have right now. Let's try to remind myself how I handle them currently as well. Input manager. I think, actually, it would be this thing that explains the structure pretty well. This might make the most sense to start with. Okay, I think I might want to start with this. This would be the first code bit, I guess. Um, uh, So I need to actually write out this portion of, I need to write out the script that's a bit more like scripty in a way. I guess that's not really a way to say it, but no, that's not what I wanted. There you go. Mm. That makes sense. I guess this is fine. Um, I might change this to you don't, so I'll explain it. Okay. Alrighty. Let's start with this sentence. Okay. One of the most common things we see in fighting games are special moves that are caused by motion inputs. This is one of the things that make fighting games very unique as a genre, as most other genres do not have this kind of input system in any way. Yep, I think that's right. I'm sorry. YouTube. Oh, great. Cool. But how do we actually program this in our games? Well, if you look on YouTube, you'll find literally nothing, surprisingly. Somehow no one has talked about this. And how do we make this in our own games? Well, if we try to find some help on YouTube, we find nothing, which is very unfortunate. So, I guess I'll just tell you how I did it myself. Uh, Control A, how to make a fighting game input system. Okay, does the summary say he tells you how to make it in code? Oh, damn it. This AI summary, please work. Okay, no, not code. Speak, numpads. How does do Z inputs? Not enough information. How to code. Yeah, no, it just doesn't. So I'll use that search query as the thumbnail. And then we can record that as a video as well. Try to get a uniform zoom scroll. Nope, I clicked on a specific video. I don't want to watch the video. I want to actually see if I am correct or wrong. So let's just use that title. Okay, how to make a fighting game input system. Let me actually go through this video quickly because it doesn't mention where it's saying. Nope, no code. Okay. Yeah. If we look for help on something like YouTube and search how to make a fighting game input system, I might as well just redo that. If we look for help on something like YouTube and search how to make a fighting game input system in code, we find literally nothing that has a program in it. We find literally nothing that has a program in code. We find literally nothing. We find literally nothing. Literally nothing. Literally nothing. Literally nothing that. No, I'm just gonna redo it because of that endpoint. Is it how to code? How to code. If we look for help on YouTube by searching how to code a fighting game input system, we find nothing, unfortunately. So this video is here to solve that problem. Okay. Mm. Alright, what's next? So what are the basics? Hmm. Would it make sense to be, let's start with how to actually take in the inputs. How do we start this with video explanation? So, what would be on our screen? I can grab the PowerPoint again, because it has some stuff. Hobby, Godot games, this, world building, craft slides, open the PowerPoint, or open document presentation, which is free and open source, so it's better. I don't need this open, don't need that open, and then I want these like side by side. Yeah, I can hide that. Alright, so what do I have right now? That's just a helper slide. These slides for actually input, I have those images in the worst location possible for like numpad notation. Yeah. Mm. Still like that. I am willing to just say at the end of the video, and if you want, you can just steal the code. Uh, I could say that at the end of the video. Mm. So, what is the best way to start off? So basically the start of the video. Fresh, whatever I want to talk about. Okay, let's look at some examples of how, let's look at an example, I guess, of how the inputs work in the game. Uh, Probably static images, um, for the most part. Or I freeze on like specific parts of the video of something. Mm-hmm. Okay. Starting with taking in inputs, maybe. What's the first part, actually? What would make the sense to be the first part? Um, do we start with special modes, or do we start with uh, reading a sequence, or just getting inputs? Hmm. Okay, reading the inputs first. So let's start with, let's begin with reading the inputs. Player gives us. Um, mm, gives us. Um, D-pad and buttons. I think this slide, or this image, plus I think this slide is also going to be very helpful because it has both it has all three things: arrows, numpad, and what I have it written in code. Okay. Those are both good. Great. Okay. So let's begin with reading the inputs from our players. Our player gives us. In godot, this is mainly handled by input get action pressed. Mainly handled by get input action pressed. But then we need to save this information over time. Nope, that doesn't follow through very well. This is fairly easy. The main lines we would need are input dot get underscore action pressed brackets quotation marks input name. Yeah, okay. I think this is reasonable. Or input.get action just pressed, right? Yeah, okay. I think it's those. And input get pressed. Okay. All right. Do I start with code right off the bat, or do I start with the general concepts? I should maybe go with an outline, actually. Let me start by stating the outline of this video. First, fix it? Okay. No, I want it to be 1. So please stop that. That's really annoying, Obsidian. Why are you doing this to me? You know what? A dot space. Sure. B dot, C dot, etc. Okay. So first, just taking in inputs from keypad and keypad and joy buttons. Okay. Saving direction information. Using direction information to make a special move. Okay. Let's start with this. Okay. Tab, mention previous video. Okay. List slash array slash input history. Okay. Okay. I guess one thing I can do is I change this scale. I change the scale. I don't know. Um, mm, Here are some of the prerequisites for this video. You have some familiarity. Yeah. The most common. That makes more sense. Uh, Prerequisites would be to understand some games have motion bugs. Mm. Some of the prerequisites for this video are you have familiarity with fighting game special moves, and it is recommended for you to have some familiarity with using arrays in code. Some of the prerequisites for this video are you have familiarity with fighting game special moves, and it is recommended for you to have some familiarity with using arrays in code. Oh, the speakers are not going to my headphones. That's just annoying. Why? That doesn't... Huh? That is really annoying. My microphone isn't working anymore. Try to reconnect it properly. This? Why? Okay, that's working. Is the headphones working now? As the audio device? Why are you doing this? Uh, One of the most common things basically in fighting games are special moves that are caused by motion. That's so weird. I don't. Why is it not going out to my dang? Okay. This is more of a reference to things. Simulate. No. General query, I guess, or Ardour help. So my headphones are properly connected. Ardour is sending the audio through the laptop. Before I do this, let me save real quick and just see if a restart does it. Nope. which is unfortunate, because that makes no sense to me. Go to session, audio, MIDI setup. Session, audio, your source. Can you find a source? Feedback mono. Is it not mono then? That's manual. Okay. Um, I don't know why. Stop and change output to picture base. Audio should be here. Do this. Disconnect. Change output device. Where is change output device? Never mind then. I am upset by this, and I don't know why it's like this. I have headphones for a reason, so why are they not working? What am I doing? Session properties monitoring. Use monitor section in this session. You have familiar. Okay, but it's still outputting to the. No, I have. Sorry. It outputs to both, but I want it to be just the anchors. Why is it still telling me to do this? That is exactly what it is. Why is it doing that? It just says and sample. Wait. You are. You have familiarity with fighting game special moves. And, there we go, that fixed it. Now, is it working for OBS? Is the other question. And it is recommended for you to. Okay. Finally, I guess I accidentally didn't put recording session initially or something. Have some familiarity with using arrays in code. Okay. Alright, now that that's done, um, mm, the first thing we need to do is just take in the inputs and then save them to some variables, since we're going to reuse them. Mm, So if you're cleaning it up, what kind of cleanup would we do? We would either use shorthand names, uh, can just make the code cleaner. Mm, mm. I'll figure out the sections actually more when I've done them. So let's just start on the D-pad inputs. Okay. Mm, mm. For this first section, let's start with just taking in the inputs. To do this, the main functions in Godot are input.getAction pressed. Stop. Oh, oh no. Now my recording isn't. Or was it just. No, that is recording. Why did that go terribly? Stop. Great, it ruined recording. Testing, testing. No, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go back and just deal with Jack. I'll deal with this problem as is. Game input system, we find nothing. Mm. I'm just gonna use the computer. Sessions property monitoring. Alright. We try again. Excellent. I hate this. Just quit. Test. I hear myself. which means I should not have turned on setting. Okay. What is this button? Microphone test. Microphone is the headphones, isn't it? Right? Yeah, okay. What's this? Station properties, monitoring, again. Okay. Still. Wonderful. I hate that. Mm. Is it on? Off? Turn it on? Please stop it. I don't know if I did. I'm having problems with order. And blue? Why? Why? Oh, so it's in a setting that's on by default. Okay. So it's on by default in this session. What can I do to stop that? Wow, that's really nice. Okay. Can I import anything? How do I import from a different hardware file? Wonderful. Test it. Test it. Testing, 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 testing. I now need to figure out which one of these is the correct thing. Games are one of the most common things we see in fighting games are special moves that are caused by motion input. One of the things that make fighting games, other genres do not have this kind of input system. I think that one or this one. One of the most common actually program this in our games. Well, if you look on YouTube, you'll find literally nothing, surprisingly. Somehow no one has talked about this. Let's come through my mic. I'll just turn off the desktop of the audio version. Okay. We try to find some help on YouTube. Find them. It's very important. This one's also surely garbage. Are these? Yes. If we look for help on something, so the like puts it on code, find literally nothing that has a program. You look for help on YouTube, find searching code, like puts it on, find nothing. Unfortunately, so this video is for games. But if you look on YouTube, this one is the one that goes away. This one is the one that stays. You have something okay. Those are the audio files. Alrighty. Remove. Yes. Please. Gosh. Now I have a barely working system. I just don't like that way. Audio comes out. Yeah. Don't have water. Mm, mm, Godot's not open. Mm-hmm. I think this might be the best one to start with. I've just been contemplating a lot, and I have not said anything useful. This doesn't need to be open here. This can go here. Okay, how do I start the video? I really should have a good script, man. Um, Okay, let's say they're taking in inputs because that might be the easier part to explain. I don't feel like. Okay. Now that we have inputs being taken in, we need to correct them. Then you can see my video on managing inputs for that. If you want the details, but it's just a few if statements. Why is it doing that? These statements for the direction, options. Okay, once we have that, we then want to save to save our inputs in a list that updates each frame. Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't mention that things are using motion or numpad notation. Me taking in for my system, I treat all of the direction inputs in numpad notation. Sure, that's a sentence I can say somewhere. No, first we need to understand how this thing works. First, let's try to understand an existing system. Yeah. Okay. Let's try to break it down. Okay. So we can see that when looking at existing systems, you can see that that it is a list of inputs. One direction and any number of attack buttons. Yep. Cool. Mhm. Any number of attack buttons. We also know that this list updates each frame. So we have a list of inputs and a list of frames with those inputs. A graph, a visual help. That would be something like visual aid. Because yeah, I think this tree is really good. If we photo it, in summary, we have an input history that contains inputs of a frame that then contain individual inputs. Hopefully that helps. Okay. I will record this with the actual text next to me. No, not over there. Thank you. Decion. Okay. Okay. Why is it not easy to rename this thing? I really don't like that I can't just name it. Okay. Okay. When looking at existing systems, we can see that during any time there is one direction and any number of attack buttons. We also know that this updates each frame. So we have a list of inputs and a list of frames with those inputs. Let's try to understand an existing system on any given frame. See, on any given frame, Let's try to understand some existing systems first. Not existing systems. Let's try to understand an existing system. When we look at the input history, we can see that on any given single frame, one direction is pressed, and any number of attack buttons are pressed. We can also see that this list updates every frame. I want to redo that. Mhm. Look at an existing system. Let's try to understand an existing system just by looking at it. When we look at an existing system, and I repeat myself, let's try to understand an existing system by looking at it. We can see on any given frame, one direction and any number of attack buttons can be pressed. We also see that this list updates each frame to make a full input history. We can visualize this as an input history that contains a frame that then contains individual inputs. I don't think that's a visualizing. I could do like a box that contains a box that contains a box. Or a truck, which would be the input history. Um, what would make sense as like a visual aid for this? I could draw something simple. Hmm. The, the smallest box would be each input. Then that would be inside of a box that contains all inputs of that frame. Okay, so update each frame to make an input history. If we break it into its components, we have inputs, frames, individual inputs, set of inputs. For a given frame. I feel like I'm repeating myself again. Contains I guess I'll just go to the end. Yeah. So to summarize, an input history that contains all inputs pressed on that frame, which will shorten to inputs of a frame, that then contains all individual inputs. Mm, Input history that contains all inputs pressed on that frame. Uh, so what we need to build is an input history that contains all the inputs pressed on that frame, and a frame that contains all the inputs individually. Mm-hmm. Mm, Now I want to mention the YouTube quiz thing. Mm-hmm. If we wanted to program this, what does this kind of look like? I'll let you answer using the YouTube's new quizzes feature, which may be in the description and not a pop-up. What does this kind of look like? I'll let you answer using the quiz feature, in the description and not a pop-up. Mm-hmm. Give them a bit of time. Okay. What would I put as options? Nested array or list structure. What could it also look like? Nested if statements. So one answer is I don't know. One answer is the correct thing, which is a nested list or a nested arrays. Other things similar to nested arrays, but are not the same. Mm, Options will be dictionary, nested array, or I don't know. Okay. Okay, so now that we have an nested array structure, uh, mhm. The answer was a nested array. Okay, and then I need to explain how I used it. Okay. Let me know it's a nested array. The correct answer is a nested array or a nested list. Uh, the answer I'm looking for is a nested array or a nested list. It may be possible with dictionaries, but that's not how I coded it here. Yeah, that's terrible. The answers I'm looking for are a nested array or nested list. This is mainly because of how I did it, and I'm not sure if there are other ways to actually solve the problem. I don't know. Might be. Answers I'm looking for are nested array and nested list. Okay. Mhm. Okay. Space, time, and then after. Now that we know we're using a nested array. Nested array. How would the resource be set up actually if I did use a resource? It would be a resource that held integers or a list of integers, that's it. And then you would put that resource inside of the array, which would just be the same as putting an array inside of an array. Uh, but then it's more like type, I guess, instead of any array. Um, I guess that makes sense. Now that we know we're using a nested array, um, we can start setting it up. So the first thing to decide is what the data should look like. For the input directions, I use Um, numpad notation. Notation. For that input directions. For the input directions, I use numpad notation, and for the attack buttons, I just added 10 to the button in the similar direction to corresponding to a similar direction. Notation, which meant I would use integers. This also needs a visual aid. Let's make one of those visual aids. Um, mm, mm, mm. Integers. And for the attack buttons, I just added a similar direction as two things a similar type. Type. And things easier to follow. I don't know if it's easier to follow. I want to focus on the visuals actually. Use them, but notation. Numpad notation. What the data should look like. So for the input directions, I used numpad notation, visual aid, as well as setting them to constants for the state of code that is a little more readable. Visual aid, as well as setting them to constants. So if you see any of these, they are equivalent, which is mentioning are the same. Okay. Mm, mm, mm. For the attack buttons, I use the numpad notation plus 10. Since I only have 4 buttons to take in, um, but any number will work as long as you are consistent, which is why you may want a enumeration or constant that represent each attack button by name. Okay. Uh, mhm. Started early today so I can end a little early today and have dinner with my family since we need dinner up when people come over for some weird reason that I don't understand. Okay. So now that we know what we're using, which are nested arrays, how do we want the data to look? No, it's catching him. I'll work on the script until he's gone. Uh, no, seems like he's gone. Now that we know we're using nested arrays, what should the data actually look like? For me, I ended up going with numpad notation for the directions, and I also set these directions to constants so that they are easier to reference. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Do I just continue the example with one attack button? Does it matter? Um, for the attack buttons, just to keep the same type, I also use a number. And it really doesn't matter what number I use, as long as it's somewhere between the 2-digit number section, or even a negative number. Actually, no, negative numbers might not work. Mm. What made sense to me for attack buttons was just to use numpad notation, but add 10, as I only have 4 buttons, but in your case it may vary and you may want to use other numbers, and that's up to you. Uh, Hmm. For the attack buttons, I also just use integers as well, just to keep the same type. And to make it easier to reference, I also set them to constants. Uh, that's the perfect spot. Snap cut that. Right now. Right now. There I go. No. Okay. Okay. Now that we have that, also visual aid. Okay, then we have that. Mm, yeah. Mm, next we can put all the data from our player's input into a list each frame. Mm-hmm. Uh, for me, it looks like this. Um, it looks like this. Uh, if you want more detailed information on how it works, I have a managing inputs video. Managing inputs, which goes over conversion of direction input. Yeah. Right. Mhm. I did take a photo of that input stuff? Input filter. If I cut this out, I have the bit index method. Um, mm, I may want to go back to a previous version or like stitch the code together. Um, yep. Into a list each frame. Oh, interest. Next, we can put all the data into a list each frame. And in code, we want to make sure to clear it every frame at the beginning. Mm-hmm. I guess this could be like a tree of none of those yet. Okay. So I would need something that's a little bit more uh, it's a little bit more reasonable. Inputs of the frame, a version of inputs I want, like just this section here so far. Um, yeah, actually, taken inputs, manage inputs, store in list, for this frame. Yep. So far, we have this. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So now that we know what our data looks like, we can start to take in some inputs, manage those inputs so that they come out correct, and then store them in the list for a singular frame. Okay, I am now on a timer for 15 minutes. Not mean to shrink that much. Shrunk a little. Okay, I must do this again. So now that we know what a data looks like, we can start to take in some inputs, manage those inputs so that they come out correct, and then store them in the list for a singular frame. Okay. So now that we know what a data looks like, we can start to take in some inputs, manage those inputs so that they come out correct, and then store them in the list for a singular frame. Personal input, it looks like this. Right, is that reasonable? Um, um, yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. Uh, we can adapt this as we like, or if you are also making a fighting game like me, then it would probably look like this for the expanded code video clip for the code, expanded code. Um, you clip, uh, expanded code video clip. I may make this video clip have more functions than my actual code. Mm, because this is what I do. I forgot to declare the constants. Const. Wait, how do I write a single constant? Const a equals 2, 8 or something. Okay, so yeah, looks like this in godot. Const up equals 8, which is also correct. Godot. We're seeing point looks like this. Mm, mm, we just check if the input is pressed, then add it to the frame. Mm, mhm. For if you go to inputs, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 2 equals 8. B equals 2. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Check if we can put this first. And for a frame, if up and down, also declare it const n. Yeah. I don't have time, so this will have to. Where is it? Where is it? Where the heck is it? Okay. Can you finish this mini version of my input manager? Um, manager for just up and down. Oh my goodness, I need a different chat. Okay. Come on, come on, come on. Doing all this when I have things to do and places to be. Just do 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 do. Equals 5, this should be 2, comma, n equals 5. I do use neutral, so I will use neutral. Okay, and that's basically all the time I have, so I will continue this tomorrow, maybe, or some other day. Depends on what I actually have time for and what my brain is thinking. Might work on the AI, might not, depends on how I'm feeling, and if I did too much work in the morning. Alright, bye, my timer.